So today at Labour's party conference, the star of the show wasn't even there.
You've heard Nigel Farage of Nigel Farage and Reform. As Farage said, just Farage to fight reform or reform and the...
So Keir Starmer is suffering from Nigel Farage derangement syndrome, and it wasn't just a number of attacks, it was the nature of them.
When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. So he resorts to grievance. They all do.
And it got even worse.
Is Nigel Farage a racist?
I answered your question. I'm not going to play the man. I'm playing the ball as our leader did. I will leave it for the public to come to their own judgments about someone who once flirted with Hitler Youth when he was younger.
Playing the man, not the ball, which was a bit silly, wasn't it, Deputy Prime Minister?
A few moments later.
He has denied it, and so I accept that he has denied it, and I would like to clarify that position because in the end the Prime Minister was keen for us to focus on the policies, not the individual.
So they can't even apologise properly, but it appears that we're back to the days of Brexit, the days of Donald Trump's first election win, because you see, nothing has been learnt. Calling your opposition, who addresses legitimate grievances and comes up with reasonable policies, a bigot just doesn't work. And worst of all, it seems, nothing has been learnt from the assassination of Charlie Kirk just weeks ago, who was routinely called a racist. Nigel Farage made that point in his interview to me, which we will get to in just a moment. Whoever came up with this tactic at Labour HQ is clearly out of touch and has a very short memory. They haven't even heeded their own party's words, because remember that after the Be Kind left and apparently tolerant and empathetic Labour spent years attacking the Conservatives for being the nasty party, labelling them Tory scum, they're just as bad as them. Labour and Sir Keir Starmer may well rue this strategy come the next general election, but really the worst thing about today's speech is that no one will remember it for his policies and plans for the future of this country. And isn't that a tragedy? Isn't that telling of the calibre of politician and leader that this country is now burdened with? Let me know your thoughts. Visit gbnews.com/your say. As I said earlier today, I spoke to Nigel Farage, but first I put all of that to Labour MP for Bolsover, Natalie Fleet. Natalie, we've just heard Sir Keir Starmer's speech from Liverpool. He talks about the difference between decency and then went on to basically put a target on Nigel Farage's back, didn't he? There's a huge amount of fear actually amongst the Reform Party this afternoon based on what Keir Starmer has said, and the fact that this was to some degree hatred from the Prime Minister.
I didn't hear that. I heard hope. Honestly, we were talking about our vision for the country and how different things are going to be. In communities like mine, we've got 1 in 4 primary schools don't even have a library. That's ridiculous. When kids grow up in poverty, they haven't got access to books, they're not going to do as well. They need a government that can absolutely deliver for them, make life easier and make sure that the state can wrap their arms around them. There was so much good in that speech. Talking about more kids going to university, having apprentices, our youth guarantee. We're not going to leave young people out of work. We're going to make sure that they've got, the government will make sure that they've got a job guaranteed after 18 months of being unemployed. I heard so much hope, and my God, as a country, we need it.
The sight of Labour waving flags and talking about owning the flag when only a matter of months ago it seemed that anybody that waved a flag was written off as far right by Keir Starmer. It's just not authentic, is it though, Natalie? The British people see through that. So you are trying to out-reform reform, but it isn't authentic.
So I don't want to give away where I live, but I do want to tell you that somebody in my area has recently painted a Union Jack on the front of their house. On the lamppost outside my house is a flag. I drive all the way to my daughter's house in the constituency, and there are flags on every lamppost. There's a flag in my bar at home, and when there have been sporting events, I've even dressed up as the flag. To say that we're now jumping on a flag bandwagon is ridiculous. I think that you can be really, really proud of your area, your country, proud to be British, and also want to look after each other, support each other, have a strong community. These are Labour values, and I feel quite angry that it's ever been a thing that we aren't patriotic, because my God, we are. Come to my area, meet me, walk around my town, my constituency. You will see how patriotic we are. I see those flags, and I see sympathy for people that are putting them up in absolute frustration. Recently, my relatives went on a march because they felt so strongly about illegal immigration. These aren't racist people. These are my friends and my family and people I have grown up with and care about. They are angry at the cost of hotel bills. They are angry at how many people are in their hotels and how long it's going to take us to get people out of them. The fact that we ever got in this situation is ridiculous, and it's thanks to 14 years of the Tories. I wish we could come in and say it's all done. We can't. It is taking time. There is no silver bullet. But I tell you, what Shabana Mahmood said yesterday on indefinite leave to remain, we will welcome you into our country with controlled migration, but we will make sure that you can speak English, that you work and that you volunteer in your community. These are Labour values. It's absolutely fantastic. That is what people who are on marches and are putting flags on lampposts want to see. They want to see controlled migration. They want to see that their young people can do better than they did. They want to see that they can get a house, that they can have a good job, they can pay taxes, and then they can have a good NHS as a result. That's what we've got to deliver on.
Natalie, you've only been pushed to take that seriously, though, because of reform and the fact that they are so vastly ahead in the polls. It has forced Labour's arm to take that issue seriously, but we're still not seeing any boats stopping. We've got 1 in, 1 out, and 125 people came across on a boat only yesterday. It doesn't add up to the British public, and they're not stupid. You've got such a long way to go to convince them that that flag waving is anything other than, to quote Yvette Cooper, plastic patriotism.
You know, people are angry about immigration, and as a result, they're using the flag. I think that we can absolutely use the flag and be proud of it, but I also know we've got to do something about immigration. We've had 35,000 people returned. We've got a deal with France, a border security commander, and now we're introducing digital ID. I don't want to walk around my villages and towns and wonder if people should be working here. I want to know that people are here that should be here, and when they are here and working, they are paying taxes. I don't think that this is a position we're pushed to because of any political party. I am here talking to you and your viewers right now because I believe this is the right thing to do.
All right, Natalie, thank you so much for your time. Natalie Fleet there, much appreciated. So after that, I actually asked her, do you know why people have Union Jack flags out? Do you know why people are doing that? And it's not because of Labour. They're doing it because they are infuriated by illegal migration into our country. We didn't show you that answer, unfortunately. But straight after that interview, I did speak to Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Nigel, we're both still just digesting the Prime Minister's speech from Liverpool. I just spoke to Labour MP Natalie Fleet, who said she didn't hear hate, she heard hope for the country. What did you hear?
I'm so sorry. It's difficult not to laugh when you hear a comment like that. What I heard was an entire Labour conference, especially today, totally dominated by the conversation about one individual. That individual not even being a member of the Labour Party, namely me. The level of obsession, speech after speech from every single cabinet minister, I promise you, quite unlike anything I've ever seen or heard in my entire lifetime of following politics. Now, on to content. I think that what the Prime Minister did today was insightful, genuinely insightful. I think he descended into the gutter. I think he took the rest of his cabinet with him. I think to constantly say that reform policies are racist, when frankly all we want to do is make sure that benefits are only paid to British citizens not to foreign nationals. All we want to do are deport those who illegally come into our country across the English Channel. I mean, this is all we want to do. All we want to do is what normal countries do. Frankly, what Donald Trump got elected on in the United States of America. And to constantly call us racist, he even dared at one point to start suggesting there was prejudice on the basis of skin colour, something for which there is absolutely not a single shred of evidence. And here's my worry, Bev. You know, I'm big enough and ugly enough and have security and all the rest of it to look after myself. But if you incite in this way by calling people racist, surely that has shades of what happened to my late friend Charlie Kirk, who they constantly called racist and Nazi, bigoted, transphobic, all of those words. And I genuinely am fearful. I'm fearful for our elected officers around the country. I'm fearful for our campaigners. I think, frankly, what Starmer has done is despicable, beneath contempt.
And he talks about this Britain for all, Nigel. I don't really know what that means. Do you understand? It's just such an empty phrase. You can't say in one breath that reform policies on mitigating migration are racist and then talk about having a Britain for all. And I don't think the British people are stupid. I think they can see right through this trying to be both sides of this really tricky argument.
Well, it's incoherent, isn't it? Because on the day after he first called us racist on Sunday, his Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, laid out a policy on people coming into Britain that on the face of it wasn't dissimilar to what we'd said last week. So he's trying to play all ends against the middle. It is totally incoherent. The one thing that's really clear from this Labour conference is there is no plan. There is no clear vision. There are just a series of platitudes and sound bites. There's no meaning whatsoever. And I personally believe that he's made the biggest mistake of his political career. You know, if you say that wanting to control immigration is racist, you are insulting and abusing over half of this country. I don't see how he rose back from that. And I believe all of this was a desperate last throw of the dice for a Prime Minister just a year into his term, who is now the most unpopular Prime Minister ever recorded in modern times.
We've got another bit of that interview which we're going to show you in the next part of the programme as well. But I'm delighted to say, back in the studio now, back here in Washington, I'm joined by political commentator Stephen Kent and Democrat strategist Malbert Smith. Gentlemen, I don't know how good you are on British politics. You've both been well aware, haven't you, today, of what's been happening at the Labour Party conference. You're both well aware of who Nigel Farage is. You're both well aware of the easy comparisons between Trump derangement syndrome and Farage derangement syndrome, which we're seeing rather a lot here, Stephen. Let me come to you on this issue of the left causing hate and being incredibly divisive and difficult. When you watch some of this, is it a surprise to you that it's happening in the UK as well as it did here?
Well, no. I mean, we certainly reflect each other on most things, but you know, the left in the UK is really no different than the US. When we were going through the racial reckoning of 2020, that jumped right across the Atlantic and started affecting British politics. And it's just funny to watch Keir Starmer stand up in front of these people and say the words, Labour wants reform wants a competition of victimhood in the UK, immediately trying to borrow the language of someone like Nigel Farage and pretend that the left in the UK has not been promoting a victimhood culture, an apology for colonialism and all this kind of stuff. It's the same thing you see here. Democrats running from their own message. They have to tell us they're patriotic because you don't see it in their actions. Donald Trump hugs the flag. He literally hugs the American flag in almost a ridiculous cartoonish fashion, but he does it because he actually likes America, and we show that in our actions. The left has a problem doing that.
Mally, I don't know whether you saw, but all the crowd in the Labour Party conference had these little pathetic plastic flags today. You would never have seen that if this wave of patriotism hadn't crossed through the UK, precisely because Nigel Farage is telling them it's okay to do so. Similar here?
Well, I would say that there's always, with both parties in the UK and in America, an embrace of the flag. Obviously, conservatives on both sides of the Atlantic have been more flag heavy in their messaging and flag heavy in their hugging.
Is that bad?
No, I don't think it's bad. I think it's a little, though, hypocritical when not speaking on the UK front, but on the US, Trump can hug the flag, but if he tweets out to his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who is his personal lawyer, that we need to prosecute his enemies, and we have the district attorney in Virginia step down, and then he replaces him with another one of his personal lawyers.
This is another one of your really master.
Stephen.
No, this is
Stephen,
no. You are deflecting
Stephen,
you are deflecting in an egregious way to a separate topic. This is a guy who went to court multiple times when Democrats tried to throw him in jail. But we're talking about a Democratic Party that in Fairfax, Virginia, and in Oklahoma were banning and passing ordinances against flying American flags in public, because during the summer of 2020 on to 2023, it became part of the left's ideology that flags were unwelcoming to outsiders. They were unwelcoming to the immigrant, despite that people risked their lives to be here. The same goes for the UK. They've been having the same movement of love for the flag and flying it because people want to come to Britain. That's why they crossed the channel to do it.
So I love the flag, but I also love the values that it stands for much more. And some of those values are not politicizing the DOJ. And to say that it's hypocritical...
That's the Department of Justice for the British viewers. Yeah.
To say that it's hypocritical that Republicans were incredibly concerned about weaponization of government, but now we don't see them saying anything about the president personally tweeting out an enemies list, which he told us he was going to have, by the way. He hasn't kept many of his promises. He hasn't kept his promise to bring down inflation. He hasn't kept his promise to increase job growth. He hasn't kept his promise to bring down drug prices, but he has kept his promise to have a government fully devoted to enacting his own revenge.
Well, let's take it back to the UK, if we can, just for a minute. When you hear the Prime Minister mention Nigel Farage. I mean, you know, Nigel Farage only has a few seats.
People love him.
in Parliament. But there was a poll that was out just today, I think it was. It was a More in Common poll. Let me just tell you, if there was an election today in the UK, to give you an idea, fellas, Reform would win 373 seats in our Parliament. Labour would get 90. The Lib Dems, you may not have heard of them, they'd get 69, and the Conservatives would get only 41. That is a thumping majority that Reform would get. So what would you do in that situation? As a Democrat strategist, Mally, would you have said to Starmer, just don't mention him, stop mentioning him? The more you mention Nigel Farage, the more you're putting him front and centre in people's minds.
I think you have to mention him, but you have to balance that with having a program and policy agenda that speaks to the country's future. So you need to refocus it and say, look, it's not personally to Farage, it's about the values he represents, and I want Britain that's stronger. It sounds like from the clips we saw that I think he went too far on the personal attacks and wasn't able to shift that into a larger
But I think that's because he can't, you know, the ideologies are so separate. When Nigel is talking about, when Nigel Farage is talking about like tightening up our borders, they keep trying to say that in Labour, but they're doing nothing about it.
They've taken all the 20% sides of 80-20 issues, whether it's immigration, whether it's crime, free speech, all of it.
We've got to take a quick break.